The Biden administration striking a deal with Iran to swap prisoners and release $6 billion in frozen Iranian funds without fear of violating U.S. sanctions. Secretary of State Antony Blinken signing off on the deal late last week as the House is back in session today. Joining me now is Center for American Security co-chair, Fox News contributor, former national security advisor to Vice President Mike Pence, and author of War by Other Means, a general in the Trump White House, General Keith Kellogg. General, good morning. Your reaction of a deal that, by the way, we learned about on the anniversary of 9/11.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. Thanks for having me this morning. Look, I think it kind of corresponds with what the coach of the Jets just said about Aaron Rodgers. It's not good. When you look at the deal, and the timing was terrible, when it was really announced yesterday on the 22nd anniversary of 9/11. And people need to understand that Iran's not a friend of the West at all. I mean, these are the largest arms supplier to the Russians in their fight against Ukraine right now. They're a very destabilizing force in the Middle East. They're looking heading towards a nuclear breakout in the near term, and they're pulling allies away from us. You know, that recent deal that they cut with the Saudis, brokered by the Chinese, to have peace between both of them. This is not good. And then when you look at the outreach they've got to terrorist organizations like Hezbollah, that's not where that money is going. You know, President Biden said, well, the money's going to go to humanitarian efforts. No, it's not. Anybody in their right mind knows exactly where it's going to go. It's going to go to terrorist activities, support of military activities by the Quds Force, which are external operations, and their fight against Israel. So all of this is just not good. It was not good timing. It was not good release of the money for the Iranians. It doesn't help the West at all.
Right now, and the Iranians are in particular here, you know, they're targeting Americans. I mean, they're targeting Americans, kidnappings, and then there's that. Well, the prisoner swap is fine. We'll put the money up there, but they're targeting Americans, and then there's ransoms. Todd Pyro's on set with me. Todd, go ahead.
General, and then you have Putin and Kim Jong Un here arriving in Russia for highly anticipated talks, of course, with the Russian president. I'm just looking at this: Russia plus Kim Jong Un, and then you have Iran. They all seem to be working against us. So what is the end game for what I'm quite frankly going to refer to as this axis of bad actors? Just because I don't want to use the phrase axis of evil, you know, in respect to the 1940s and all that we went through as a nation then.
Yeah, this is just not good. When you look at Kim Jong Un heading to Vladivostok, I think he's there right now, and working with Putin, it's a quid pro quo. He's going to supply the Russians with a lot of ammunition, military support in their fight against Ukraine. And what Russia's going to do is provide them some type of economic support and probably technology support as well to advance their nuclear program. So, you know, it actually does go back to an axis of evil, even what President Bush said years ago. And what's unfortunate, what I see right now, is you see this coalescing of people that are not friendly to the United States. You look at the alliance you've got between China, between North Korea, between Iran, and Russia as well. And it's something we have to counter. And we haven't done that. We've kind of left Kim Jong Un alone over the last few years, hoping he'd kind of just sit on the sidelines and not do very much. He's always been a bad actor. We've tried to take him off the stage, in other words, isolate him under the last administration, and this administration just ignored him. And there's one thing we found about Kim Jong Un: you can't ignore that man. You can't ignore what he does, because he's trying to do a breakout of technology, advanced nuclear weapons, advance his ability to have more and better and longer range ICBMs. It's just a real threat. And you look at all these things coming together, and it's a very disturbing development in the area of national security. And it's something we're going to have to address. It's something we are not addressing right now. We're going to have to address in the future, of all these nations coming together. And it's a threat to the United States and to the Western world and to the Pacific as well.
Well, and you know, Todd reported on his show this morning about what's at stake here as far as what these two leaders could be swapping. It's a laundry list of weaponry. Really quick, Christopher Wray is warning that the number of Russian spies operating in the U.S. is still way too big. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, you know, it's a little bit disturbing. Of course, it was a great place to make a presentation by Christopher Wray, which was at the Spy Museum. The biggest concern I have is the comments he made about third country nationals supporting the Soviet, the Russians, into the future on spying. For example, he mentioned a gentleman by the name of Hector Fuentes, which is a third country, a Mexican national, and they're recruiting more and more nationals that are not Russian citizens or Russian implants into the nation. That should be very, very disturbing to us, especially with the fact that our southern border is so wide open, and you have an ability to recruit, develop, and use these assets. It's something we need to be concerned about. Christopher Wray with the FBI, they've got a major problem with the increase of spies and Russian spies and Chinese spies as well into this nation. It's something we need to address. Again, when you put all this together, it's just not a good sign for us.
General, before you leave, we just we just honored and commemorated the 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. And I wanted to get your thoughts because it seems that we are in a more precarious position now than we've been in the last 22 years. And I think there's a lot of concern that we are weak on the world stage, and a lot of that criticism is falling on President Biden. Can you give me a quick comment on that, sir, before you go?
Yeah, you know, and how you really tell that is when you look at our allies moving away from us, or at least going to middle ground. You see what the Saudis have recently done when they've actually reached out to the Chinese to broker a deal between they and the Iranians. And when you look at the other nations, look at the United States, and do they see strength or weakness? And if they see weakness, they're going to move toward strength, which is unfortunately some of our adversaries. You know, and look, I was in the Pentagon 22 years ago when 9/11 occurred, and I remember what happened, and I remembered the great coming together of the United States as a result of that. And it's something we need to do now going into the future, because we are looking more and more towards this destabilized world. Yeah. And I think it's unfortunate that we've got weakness in our leadership right now, and it really shows. And I'm not trying to be partisan about it. It's just something that is so obvious to the natural eye that we're seeing with our leadership and how we are developing the situation with our allies, or more disturbing what we're not doing with our allies.
Well, and this is a conversation that I hear happening among many that currently serve in the military or did serve in the military. And thank you for your service as always, General Keith Kellogg. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, sir. Thank you for being here.